China's largest rocket fragments have landed in the Indian Ocean, putting an end to days of speculation over where the debris will land and attracting criticism from the US for a lack of accountability. According to Chinese state media and the China Manned Space Engineering Office, CSAO, the point of impact was west of the Maldives archipelago. Although much of the rocket had burned up before re-entry, the sections of it re-entered the atmosphere at 10:24 a.m. Beijing time, 0224 GMT, and landed at a site with longitude 72.47 degrees east and latitude 2.65 degrees north. The debris from the Long March 5B had been a source of concern since it launched from China's Hainan Island on April 29. The rocket was returning from successfully putting the Chinese first new space station module in the orbit. But it shortly fell out of its control from China. It started to orbit the Earth once every 90 minutes. The re-entry of the rocket over the Arabian Peninsula was verified by the U.S. Space Command, but it was unclear if the debris reached land or sea. The Long March was the 5B variant's second deployment since its maiden flight in May 2020. Last year, remnants of the first Long March 5B hit the Ivory Coast, causing damage to many houses. There were no injuries recorded. NASA's administrator, Bill Nelson, a former senator and astronaut, said that spacefaring nations must minimize the risks to people and property on Earth of re-entries of space objects and maximize transparency regarding those operations. Mr. Nelson added that it is clear that China is failing to meet responsible standards regarding their space debris. Since water covers the majority of the Earth's surface, the chances of hitting a populated area of land were slim, and the chances of casualties even slimmer. But doubt about the rocket's orbital deterioration and China's inability to issue stronger guarantees in the run-up to re-entry fueled fears. It is critical that China and all spacefaring nations and commercial entities act responsibly and transparently in space to ensure the safety, stability, security and long-term sustainability of outer space activities, Nelson said. The possible debris region, according to Harvard astrophysicist Jonathan McDowell, may have been as far north as New York, Madrid, or Beijing, and as far south as southern Chile and Wellington in New Zealand. Since large chunks of the NASA space station Skylab dropped from orbit and landed in Australia in July 1979, most countries have used spacecraft architecture to prevent such uncontrolled re-entry, according to McDowell. McDowell said that it makes the Chinese rocket designers look lazy that they didn't address this. Concerns that the rocket was out of reach and could inflict harm were dismissed as Western hype by the Global Times, a Chinese tabloid. At a daily media briefing on Friday, Wang Wenbin, a spokesman for China's foreign ministry, said, "It is normal practice around the world for upper stages of rockets to burn up when re-entering the atmosphere." Mr. Wang added that according to his knowledge, the upper stage of this rocket has been deactivated, which means most of its parts will burn up upon re-entry, making the likelihood of damage to aviation or ground facilities and activities extremely low. The rocket, which launched an unmanned Tianhe module into orbit, which will house 3 crew members on a permanent Chinese space station, will be followed by 10 more missions to complete the station by 2022. The Long March 5B rocket fell back to Earth after launching part of China's next space station. The 30-meter-long, 22-ton rocket reached orbital velocity, which meant it was flying around the planet every 90 minutes, too fast for space agencies to predict where it would land. A concept craft identical to this one came within 13 minutes of reaching New York City last year. The 18th Space Control Squadron of the United States Space Force reported that the craft had landed in the Atlantic Ocean. If the rocket had re-entered the atmosphere over a populated area, the impact would have been similar to a small plane crash dispersed over 100 miles, according to Jonathan McDowell, an astronomer at Harvard University's Astrophysics Center. According to the European Space Agency, ESA, it is not always possible to reliably predict where the object or its sections would land during an uncontrolled re-entry event like this. Since spacecraft do not travel at such low altitudes, atmospheric density, which is what drives the rocket's speed to subsequent re-entry, is unknown below 300 kilometers. The Long March 5B rocket was believed to be fluctuating at an altitude of between 170 and 372 kilometers, but it was seen dropping to 160 kilometers when it crashed in the sea on May 9. Recently, we were warned about a contagious virus called COVID-19, which by the way some still believe originated from a Chinese lab. but many of us did not take the risk serious. Now it has claimed over 3 million lives and still counting. So with an increased Chinese aggression in the space too, pay attention to this kind of warnings in the coming years and mind the space above your head. We have an adventurous chap in the neighborhood. If you like this video, press the subscribe button below to get future updates, lest the next falling rocket lands on your bed while you're sleeping.